hearts are broken, the healing undone. Can you hear it? Mother Earth's cry, begging her children to unify. No more lines, no more walls, just love, just light. It's time to stand tall. We are not colors, borders, or names. We are the fire, the wind, the rain. Hands outstretched, let's break the chains. Turn this sorrow into hope again. Oh, Mama's watching and she knows her children lost in all their woes. But love is stronger than history's pain. Together we rise, together we change. So listen close, hear her plea. A world of peace is meant to be. Step by step with helping hands, let's heal this earth, our sacred land.
Boom. That's another good one right there. That is real good. Glenda, that's going to go into the Badassery Hall of Fame. Hey, 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 welcome, 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 everybody. Nicely done, Empress of Music at Truth Seekers, Miss Glenda Turner. Thank you so much, Sheepdog and Mrs. Sheepdog. Thank you for playing that tonight in our opening. Together we can heal the pain. Starts individually, right? We had a little over 300 people at the peak of our Telegram Live last night, and we had some really good discussion. And a lot of the discussion was more about going within and moving forward and finding our strengths and setting our foundations for which we're going to stand on shoulder to shoulder with the people versus the system and its bad actors. And you know, we kind of covered some of the current events with the ship that hit the Brooklyn Bridge, right, and some of the comms out of that, and we covered some other current events briefly. But it was really about remembering why we started all of this, and it's about the children. There's no way in hell we can leave this mess that we're in right now to the children. Not one of us would rest in peace to do so. And I think that's the unity piece that's going to come real strong. Yeah, we're probably, you know, a very short period of time away from the collapse of the dollar. We'll see. Then the synthetic reset with fake QFS and all that. But it's about the children. Of course, you know, the great taking has started already. The great taking has started already. Law firms are snatching up homes that are already paid for and, you know, using the legal fiction straw man to take control over homes and causing foreclosures to happen and evictions to happen. Earthquakes, the weather, tornadoes. All kinds of things happening, and it's not doom and gloom. Imagine that, right? It's not doom and gloom. It's a period of strength and growth and learning and lessons, and to know that you're being tested. Are we going to run back to the old fear model? We're going to have knee-jerk reactions to things that we think are coming against us, when reality is they're just coming out because they're scared they can't control us anymore, which they can't. Those days are over with. Yes, the earth is healing from the inside out, as are we. Absolutely. Well said, Felina. So, Young Elder and Rod Hay, Chief Pontiac, did a West Coast Tribe thing presentation the other night, and it was real good. I hope everybody got to see that. Okay, we may play it on our platforms during the next couple of days. There's a lot of expectation and angst about what's to come over the next couple of days. People that are still following the Q stuff or following the Q clock, and it's a psyop, folks, but they're going to play it out. They're going to play it out. And we'll just have to see how it unfolds. Remember, digital, the digital offer that's coming at us is not ours. It's not something that we need to get caught up in. If you choose to, go right ahead. I'm not going to come against you if you do. All right. If you want to separate from it and are finding a hard time doing it, I spoke to somebody earlier today that was in sheer panic because they couldn't separate from it. They had some digital currency, right, and they were trying to get out of it and just dump it all, be done with it, wash their hands of it. And the concern is that if they didn't, they were going to come after them. No, it's not the case. So, do the best you can to shed the fear and the angst. The answers are always within you. Sometimes we need a little push from people that are around us, people that are like-minded. We all need it. And we just keep finding our way. So I want to take a few minutes tonight and go to, the Sheepdogs turned us on to the YouTube channel Forgotten History. And I want to go to a video tonight that was about Operation Northwoods, the U.S. plan to kill its own citizen. And it's almost 12 minutes, so it's not going to be a long video, but it's good to go back and revisit the things that we know are being reversed. If they haven't already, which most of it all has, it's just we're in the loop, right? We're not in the loop, but there are people in the loop, right? There's a lot of people, like when the drug prices news came out last week. The lowest drug prices ever. Well, that happened in 2017. And now they're doing it again. Truth Social, the Trump actor, posted something on, and we're not going to talk a lot about the shit show, but I just wanted to remind you of some of the history. Truth Social, the Trump actor, posted that all roads lead to Obama. Well, Obama ain't been in office since what, 2016, 2015, something like that? 2016?
Yeah, about 10 years ago.
Allegedly, right?
Yeah, 3
about 10 years ago. Yeah. I mean, really? I mean, why are we falling for this stuff, folks? But, enough said. Enough said. Share this out. We're going to go over Operation Northwoods. here, and the U.S. planned to kill its own citizens. Okay, and if you haven't looked up the word citizens as it pertains in Black Law Dictionary, you should probably do that as well. But here we go.
This is not speculation. Every detail in this episode comes directly from declassified U.S. government documents. In April of 1961, the United States launched a secret invasion of Cuba. It was supposed to be quick, surgical, quiet, but instead, it became one of the greatest foreign policy disasters in American history. Over 1,400 CIA-backed exiles stormed the beaches of the Bay of Pigs, and within 3 days, they were either captured, killed, or forced to surrender. The plan had been to overthrow Fidel Castro. What America got instead was a global embarrassment. In the months that followed, something changed inside the United States national security apparatus. Publicly, Washington claimed restraint. Privately, it was a different story. Behind closed doors, military leaders believed the only way forward was war. But with the American people still reeling from a failed invasion, public support wasn't guaranteed. That's when a new plan was drafted. One that would guarantee outrage, one that would rally the nation, and one that, if approved, would cross a line no republic should ever entertain. A plan that, if executed, would have killed innocent Americans on American soil, just to start a war. The plan called for hijackings, bombings, staged funerals, even a fake airliner explosion. And none of it was coming from a foreign enemy. It came from the Pentagon. This wasn't a rogue idea scribbled on a napkin. This was signed off by the Joint Chiefs of Staff. They called it Operation Northwoods. So why would a U.S. military plan a false flag terror attack on its own people? And what does it say about the lines our leaders are willing to cross when they think no one's watching? Let's try and find out.
Hello, I'm Mike Droberg, Marine Corps veteran and filmmaker, and we will try to answer these questions on today's episode of Forgotten History.
Navan is a business travel booking platform that slashes your travel costs. With Navan, employees book
The Bay of Pigs wasn't just a military disaster, it was a psychological one. For the CIA, it was a gut punch. For the Pentagon, a humiliation. And for the Kennedy administration, a PR nightmare. What most Americans didn't realize was that President John F. Kennedy had only been in office for 3 months when the invasion began. He hadn't created the plan, he had inherited it. A cockamamie CIA scheme hatched under the Eisenhower administration that was already in motion by the time he took the oath of office. The invasion had been sold as airtight, but in reality, it was underfunded, poorly coordinated, and based on a wildly optimistic assumptions about the Cuban people rising up against Castro. They didn't. The world watched as America's covert operation fell apart in real time. Castro paraded prisoners in front of cameras. Khrushchev mocked U.S. weakness. And inside Washington, patience wore thin. And once given the green light, the failure landed squarely on Kennedy's shoulders. The Joint Chiefs of Staff, America's top military leaders, began pushing for something far more aggressive. They didn't want another half-baked mission. They wanted a full-scale invasion of Cuba. But there was a problem. The American people weren't interested in another war. Not after Korea, not after the Bay of Pigs. And without public outrage, there could be no political mandate for military action. That's when a new idea emerged. Not one based on intelligence or diplomacy, but on manipulation. If they couldn't win the hearts and minds honestly, they'd manufacture the crisis themselves. And in March of 1962, the U.S. Department of Defense submitted a proposal that would send shockwaves through history, though the public wouldn't learn about it for another 35 years. The proposal was called Operation Northwoods. And it came directly from the Joint Chiefs of Staff, America's highest-ranking military brass. And it wasn't just one bad idea, it was a checklist of chaos. The plan outlined a series of false flag operations, attacks that would appear to be carried out by Cuba, but were actually staged by the U.S. government. The goal? Create a public justification for a full-scale military invasion. Some of the suggestions read like scenes from a dystopian screenplay. They included fake hijackings of commercial airlines blamed on Cuban agents, bombings in Miami, Washington, and even inside U.S. military installations. A drone airliner painted to match a real passenger flight would be remotely destroyed over Cuban waters. A list of fake victims, complete with staged funerals, would be published to sell the illusion. They even considered sinking a U.S. Navy ship and faking Cuban sabotage, or staging a deadly riot among Cuban exiles of Florida, supposedly incited by Castro's agents. The memo even referenced history itself, suggesting a new Remember the Maine incident, a nod to 1898 when the mysterious explosion of a U.S. warship triggered war with Spain. They wanted to follow the same blueprint, manufacture a tragedy, blame the enemy, and rally the nation. One memo proposed assassinating Cuban refugees or American civilians to generate a helpful wave of indignation across the country. These weren't theoretical suggestions buried in the footnotes. They were written in plain language, deliberate, cold, methodical. And most disturbing of all, the Joint Chiefs of Staff didn't just brainstorm the plan, they signed off on it. The document was approved by General Lyman Lemnitzer, chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and delivered to the Secretary of Defense in March of 1962. The final decision now rested with one man, the President of the United States. The Northwoods proposal was submitted to Secretary of Defense Robert McNamara, and from there, it made its way to the President. John F. Kennedy was just over a year into his first term, still weathering the blowback from the Bay of Pigs, still battling his own military leadership behind closed doors. But this time, the Joint Chiefs of Staff had gone too far. Operation Northwoods wasn't a military plan. It was a blueprint for domestic terrorism. The document was signed and endorsed by the most powerful generals in America: General Lyman Lemnitzer, General Curtis LeMay, General George H. Decker, Admiral George W. Anderson Jr., and General David M. Shoup. General Lyman Lemnitzer wasn't some loose cannon. He was a decorated World War II veteran, a key architect of Cold War defense strategy, and the most powerful military officer in the United States, which made his approval of Northwoods all the more chilling. These weren't fringe actors. These were the Pentagon's top brass. And President Kennedy, he rejected it. No edits, no debate, no discussion. He shut the whole thing down. Lemnitzer was quietly pushed out months later, reassigned to a NATO command. And Northwoods was buried, locked away in the classified vaults of the Pentagon, where it remained hidden for over 35 years.
Do you want to know where to invest $1,000 right now? Well, forget about AI, quantum computing.
Operation Northwoods was never carried out, but its existence tells us something critical, not just about the Cold War, but about power. In 1962, the top military minds of America proposed terror attacks on its own people. And they did it so confidently because they believed the ends justified the means. That alone should have sparked a national scandal, but it didn't. Northwoods remained buried until 1997, when it was uncovered through a sweep of documents released by the JFK Assassination Records Review Board. The plan sat untouched in the Pentagon archives for decades, until a handful of researchers started asking the right questions. And by then, all of the architects were gone. And the Cold War they hoped to escalate was long over. For historians, it became a case study in how far democracy can drift behind closed doors. For others, it raised darker questions. Why would a government even consider something like this? What else might have been proposed and buried? Operation Northwoods wasn't some isolated idea. Elements inside the U.S. government had long considered psychological warfare and staged provocations. From World War II deception operations to Cold War contingency planning, the logic was always the same. If public opinion won't go where you want it, give it a push. But most of all, what would have happened if Kennedy had said yes? In the months after he rejected Northwoods, his relationship with the Joint Chiefs deteriorated. He grew increasingly skeptical of the CIA, the Pentagon, and even his own advisors. He publicly stated he wanted to splinter the CIA into 1,000 pieces and scatter it into the winds. And then, on November 22nd, 1963, John F. Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas. Officially, there's no connection. But unofficially, Operation Northwoods remains one of the most compelling exhibits in the long, dark shadow of the JFK conspiracy theories. Because once you learn that America's own generals drafted a plan to kill Americans for political gain, suddenly the unthinkable doesn't seem so far-fetched. Let us know your thoughts about Operation Northwoods in the comment sections below.
Thank you for watching Forgotten History. Please like, share, and subscribe. If you have any comments or show ideas, we'd love to hear from you. Thanks again.
All right, so Kennedy shut it down, right? Which is a good thing. You know, good and bad exists in every one of the presidents that we had since George Washington, who we found out was the face of the colonizers and the settlers of the time that put George Washington in and deemed him in history as the first president, knowing he wasn't. Real history has been reported since then, all the way to JFK, right? And you know, one of the biggest discussions that we're having right now in a lot of this is the Smith-Mundt Act, right? Which Obama allegedly, which he did sign into law again and made it domestic when he did in 2012, I think it was. Correct me if I'm wrong, sheepdog. But it is a very, very important to know that this fight that we're going on, that we expect the military to step in and save us, or a lot of those bloodlines, you know, the generals that signed Operations Northwood, their children's children are the generals nowadays. Just got different names. They just kept breeding them, right? So they could carry on the same thing, the military industrial complex, right? They're not going to change, folks. Okay. We're at a pivotal time where the rank and file of the military are having to choose if they're going to continue to follow orders. We're at a period of time where the militia is recognized as constitutional in standing with the people, and so on and so forth. There's a lot of depth to it, right? But are we at that kind of war now? And we've talked about that for years. It's an information war, right? It's a digital war. And the information is out there. It's gain the knowledge and take the appropriate action with the knowledge. Don't sit on it like they have. Like they did. You know, Operation Northwood's documents were at the Pentagon for 35 years for anybody, they seen the light of day, past the government and the Department of Defense and the military brass, right? And we're at a time where the collapse is happening of the U.S. government, or U.S. Inc. Really, a legal fiction government, uh, posing as a country when they're just a corporation, and all its actors are wrapped up in it all as well, playing, some of them playing both sides of the fence. While we, the people, are left wondering when this is going to take place, when the collapse is going to take place, what's going to take place when the collapse happens, and there's a hard time for people trusting, um, people trusting, the the word of anybody. Okay, it took me a second. I was in the middle of looking at something else too. But the word of anybody. All right, and um, people have grown in their strength through practice and muscle, or exercising that discernment muscle, right? Because it's a muscle. It's one of the greatest gifts that that humanity has. Um, and everybody's beginning to see through it, or have already seen through it, seen through the lies. Okay, I mean, a lot of us can read the headline now and know that it's full of shit. You know, um, but yet and still, you also have to learn how to pick the meat off the bones. Okay, and don't discount anything, right? And then the lack of trust, has projected onto each individual. Trust in yourself to know where you stand, and who you stand with. Um, but this channel right here, is really good especially if you're new and you don't know a lot of this stuff that's in here. Is a great way to catch up, because these videos, a lot of them are shorts, basically. I think the longest one I've seen is 40 minutes, down to 20 minutes, 11 minutes. There is one where they did a Bush, Clinton, Obama biggest scandals exposed, right? That's over an hour, but the rest of them are between 10 and 20 minutes, and they're really, really good. Um, so if you want to learn a little bit about the history and start connecting the dots when you hear Rod talk about the tribes and Taj Tariq Bey and so on and so forth, talk about our real history in America. All right. Um, this helps you. This helps you connect the dots. Okay. I mean, you can see there is a ton of information here. They got Doc Holliday in here. They've got Pat Tillman's death. Mrs. Sheepdog shared Pat Tillman, and Sheepdog shared Pat Tillman's story from this channel right here. Excuse me, I'm sorry. The untold story of the American Hitler, George Lincoln Rockwell. Okay, that was really good. I really enjoyed that one. I learned a lot from it, and how to connect it to, and the Fast and the Furious is broke down in here. So on and so forth. The aftermath of World War II is another good one. It's 12 minutes long, packed full of information. And you just, if you go on YouTube at all, this is a good channel for you to go get some of the history from. You may not agree with everything, but you may not agree with everything, but it is a great way to connect the dots between the Aboriginal Indigenous tribes, right into right into you know, the false history that was created and how it was created. The CIA was a big part of that. MI6, the Mossad, right? Israel was involved as well. The Vatican, obviously. The banking cartels. Basically, they're cartels. That all started with the City of London, and even the Vatican was involved in that. Um, and our own military brass was responsible for keeping it all under wraps and defended. That's how we found out about the straw man. Your straw man was turned into a bond. Okay, so turned into a war bond. It was turned into a war bond, so they had a way to fund their wars and profit from it without spending any of their own money, fiat or not, right? Um, so if you're catching up or you want to know to answer some things that you had along the way and didn't get them, you may find them on this channel right here as far as history goes. In the very beginning of the video that Young Elder and Rod did on, I think it was Friday night, on the West Coast tribes. Let me see if I can pull that up. Todd, they play a video of Taj Tariq Bey telling everybody that the stories of the ships coming over here was all bullshit. If we're here now, we were here. Our ancestors were here from the beginning, and it didn't have labels. Okay, I mean, it talks specifically about the melanated, but all of it's included. White people, Caucasian, so on and so forth. There were no labels. We were all here before. So that's my message tonight, is to first and foremost learn the history so that you can connect dots, and do it at a pace that doesn't necessarily push you into having angst or worry, but it actually is settling. Even though we have to find out and come to terms with military industrial complex and the things that they have planned and did throughout the years, along with the CIA, the MI6, the Mossad, the draconian lawyers and doctors. All of that could be pretty heavy stuff, but it's in the past. You only need to learn from what it was so that it never happens again. Because we live in the now. All right? We live in the now. We can manifest tomorrow. But we have to live in the now. The current events, like we went over in the live last night, they're not important, but they are important. The coming reset, this coming synthetic reset, it's a test. It's a test, okay? We're going to do just fine. We're going to keep singing about the Smith-Month Act from the mountaintops. We're going to keep singing about saving the children from the mountaintops. And the biggest thing with the children right now is what is the court systems, the judges, the lawyers, and child protective services, along with the policy enforcers, right? That's a cartel in itself when it comes to child trafficking. Not all of them are involved, but a good portion of them are. So I'm not broad stroking them. I'm making a very distinct declaration, if you will. And excuse me. And with that declaration, I want everybody to remember strongly this is about the children. There's no way in hell we can leave what we're in right now to our up and coming generations. There's no way in hell. So let me see here if I can catch that video for you of Taj. Young elder.
One of the things that I would like to
Well, I know they did it on Young Elder's channel, didn't they? Can y'all hear me?
Yeah. Yep. Flat 5x5.
All right. Oh, I wonder where in the hell the video is. It's not in his list. Let me go over here and get it this way. All right. There we go. I wonder why I wasn't showing up on his list on videos, but here it is. Mrs. Sheepdog had shared it with me, so I went and got it from where she shared it with me, and it's still live. So let me get to the part where they're playing Todd's video. Here we go.
We were all
laughing. But we finna go into the receipts. So let's get into the documents, Elder. So I went to AI and got a few things to help me. That's touch. Back in the day.
Yeah, it's just gonna say, he just gonna say one thing, it's gonna go along with your class too. Here we go.
We're the true Americans. The European colonists took over and started calling themselves Americans and started changing the history, saying that they brought us here. We were always here. We were always here. You've got pyramid kutas in Central South America that are older than the pyramids in Giza in Misraim that the people call Egypt. Older. You've got civilization principles that are here in Lower Egypt that you call Kentucky and Tennessee area that is older than they are in what you call Egypt. But those things are held secret because they don't want these people to know that they're the heirs apparent to this land. So they branded them Negro, black, and colored to cut off the linear history. So when the people think they're Negro, black, and colored, they can't tie to the illustrious history of the founders of civilization. As a matter of fact, they keep trying to leave and everybody else trying to come here because they don't even know that this is the hub, the North Gate. We're the true Americans. The European colonists took over and started calling themselves American.
He's just gonna run it back.
Okay, now, based on what he said, remember, no bourgeois Ali said you are not Negro, colored folks, but you are what your ancestors were, without a doubt or contradiction.
Right.
Right. So the classification.
So You know, there's newer videos. This is one of the oldest ones. Todd saying that there's newer videos where he includes even the Empress has them out there as well. And Rod, that the ship coming over here on ships is bullshit. It's a bullshit story. Okay, and if you're here now, then your ancestors were here before. All right, and that's how skewed and confused some of us can be, and how skewed the history is. We had a lot of discussion throughout the last 10 years about bloodlines. And we've had to come to the realization that all of them have been mixed together. If you've got one drop of a bloodline, you've got them all, right? They've all been mixed together. And all of that was to keep the people at bay, to finding out who they really were and awakening. That was what they feared the most, that we would get a higher version of ourselves known as a higher consciousness or Christ consciousness activated, and they could no longer control us. Well, that's where they're at now. They can't control us anymore. They have no power or authority over us. All the blockades have been removed or shut down. We're learning about the legalese and the manipulation of the words in our language, right? And we have very diverse cultures, just like the title of the video says. Todd goes on to showing you the receipts of the West Coast, indigenous, and breaks down the different sects and actual bloodline tribes and how they got moved around and secularized by the colonizers and settlers and made to believe that the Aboriginal indigenous were no longer fighting to keep ties to the land. Well, they never stopped, and the proof is in the pudding. They're still here, just like we're still here. All of us are here, and we're standing up to it. So while I'll probably come on one afternoon this week and play this live, just let it play for everybody to hear that may not have heard it, because there's a lot of good information in here. This is something that you can visit. Let me know if you visited over in Telegram or Facebook, and let me know if you visited it, and we will absolutely, not have to play it on a live, but I don't mind doing that on all the platforms. We may not be interested in some of it, but a lot of it is necessary so that we know how to carry ourselves and we stand united for the children. Unity is happening. It's happening. The awakening is happening. The awareness of the end of the conjure wars, the awareness of their lack of authority, the awareness of the solar energies that are emitting to the earth as they close the age. All of that is becoming more and more apparent in a lot of our lives, and we're witnessing these things for more than one reason. Go within, folks. If you haven't started, please just take the time to go within. You will gain so much peace and so much joy knowing that we've already won. We just have to know how to act accordingly as the knowledge comes back to us. There's a lot of people who are awakening, but yet haven't remembered a lot of things, myself included. But I have started getting some memories. Okay, Sheepdog talked about one of his memories last night on the Telegram Live. It was an awesome piece, value add to the conversation. Floating, flying, right? Out of body experience and recognizing it from his past. What did he learn from it? He shared it all. Great stuff. Several of the people joined in. I've had several conversations with folks. You know, we don't all agree on everything. It's okay. We don't have to agree on it. What we have to agree upon is that this is for the children, not a skin color, a specific skin color or demographic, not a specific culture, but it's for the children. It's all people. Yep. See, Sherry's saying she had flying dreams too. Right on, Sherry. Sheepdog, what do you think about all that, man?
Yeah, other people shared some stuff in the chat. Is it Kathleen?
Yep.
And a few other people. Yeah.
Catherine. Yep.
Yeah. Everybody's experience is different. Some started in their childhood, some later as an adult. Some felt that they were cut off from those dreams as time passed.
Right on.
Yeah, the pyramids are over here, like Taj was saying. That's why we were looking into the Grand Canyon and stuff like that. This was old Egypt.
Right.
But we all coexisted.
That's interesting stuff to me, you know.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, we all coexisted at one point without all the division and
yes,
stuff like that. They don't want us to wake up to that fact. They want to keep us divided because a house divided cannot stand. So this left-right politic paradigm that people get caught up in is what's keeping it from happening, because in reality it's a uniparty. There's no separation with them, but it's definitely, we're separated locally. I mean, not really, because with all the division that's pushed, you think when we went to grocery shopping, we wouldn't even be able to shop in the same stores and stuff, but we all can pretty much get along there. We get along when we fill up the football stadiums and baseball stadiums and basketball stadiums. You don't see no division there, other than the opposite teams and stuff like that. But again, in order to play a game a little
competitiveness.
Yeah. In order to play a game on the people, you got to have two teams, Republican, Democrat. So stop playing the game. Yeah, I don't see the division out in the public. I see it only on TV and on social media, because people wouldn't talk like that to each other in person.
Social media, yeah.
I see some ugly stuff on social media. Everyone's divided until there's a crisis. And then we all come together. That's the beautiful thing.
Right. Well, that coming together and the waking up is pretty strong right now. Okay. And this is and if you're not experiencing those things, you're not a bad person. Okay. And you're not going to be behind or left behind or thought of as being behind. There's no judgment and condemnation in the awakening. Just be your true self, okay? And it'll come. But I put this post in there. It was about this, okay? And this this image right here, to become who you want to be, you must sacrifice who you are. Okay, is what the image says, right? The image speaks to a truth that few are willing to face. Transformation demands the death of the old self. To become who you want to be, you must sacrifice who you are. Who you are is not just poetic, it is the sacred cost of real evolution. Most want change, but few are ready to burn the comfort of their current identity. They cling to old beliefs, outdated habits, and emotional wounds like armor, not realizing that the very armor is what keeps them from their becoming. The warrior in the image, shrouded in mystery, standing in the halls of trials, isn't just a symbol of external power, but of inner mastery. This is a soul who has gone through the fire, surrendered the ego, died to everything that they once were, in order to awaken as something more, not better, more true. Sacrifice in this context isn't loss; it's liberation. You must give up who you've been told to be, who you've pretended to be, and even who you've grown comfortable being. One thing, only then can your higher self step forward, unshackled, empowered, and unafraid. This is the Hermetic path, the alchemy of the soul, the dark night before the dawn of the true self. The question is, are you willing to step into the unknown? Are you ready to wield the sword, not against others, but against the illusion within itself? That is the mark of the true warrior, not of war, but of wisdom. And I forgot to put on there the source. Let me edit that right quick. Oh shit. Let me edit that right quick because I forgot to put the source on there. All right. No, wrong one. Might help I turn the light on. All right. And then there's the divine spark. Okay. In the divine spark, let's read what the ancient Hermetics wrote about the divine spark. A sacred reminder from the wisdom of the ancients, long before modern religions, before borders, before books, there were truths spoken by the wise ones of old. These truths echoed across temples, echoed into stone, etched into stone, whispered in the halls of initiation. They were known by the ancient civilizations of Kemet, Sumer, Lemuria, and Atlantis, passed down through sages, mystics, and keepers of the inner plane. One such truth is this: the divine spark dwells within you. Thoth spoke of it. The emerald tablets preserve it. So did Hermes, Lay Sal, and countless others whose names time has tried to bury. They all thought the source is not out there, but within. The temple is not built with hands. It is the heart awakened by remembrance. You don't need a priest, a title, or a label to connect to the source. You only need to go within. That's where the great mystery has always been, hidden in plain sight, in the silence behind the noise. And as we walk this path of remembrance, there's another truth the ancients understood well. Everyone who crosses your path does so for a reason. Some come to uplift, others to challenge. Some are kind, others confrontational. But all are reflections of lessons, wounds, and strengths, and forgotten fragments of the self. Even those who test us, trigger us, or wounded us are part of the unfolding. They are the fire that tempers that tempers the blade, the friction that polishes the stone. The ancients knew this and honored it. Nothing is random, all is teaching. We grow not just through peace, but through pressure. We remember who we are by facing what we are not. Wisdom is earned, not handed down, but drawn out from within. So let this be a reminder the divine essence is in you always. You are your own sacred temple. Your life, with all its twists, turns, and trials, is the initiation. As the Emerald Tablet says, as within, so without, as above, so below. This is the key. This is the mirror. Stand tall in your knowing. Stay humble in your learning. And walk with reverence. For you carry within you the same fire that lit the stars. Thought it was two very profound from the ancient Hermetics today, and I shared with everybody. And let those words, rest in your mind and your heart and process them as you see fit. But alchemy is the process for which you conquer the ego. You conquer the ego and find your higher self, or allow it to be free, uncaged, and it's divine. It's divinity. It's action. It's action of a divine being. It's righteousness. It's all of those things and more. Dare yourself to be who you need to be and who you should be based on your divinity. That's my message for you tonight. And with that, I yield. Sheepdog, go ahead.
All right, we're going to start off, I guess, a little bit of good news.
All right.
Share screen. Hold on.
We like good news.
Because we're going to be talking a little bit about Fauci and testing on foster children with AIDS medications and stuff like that. But before we get to there, I want to talk about Texas passed the House Bill 3441. Right here, we're going to pull this clip up. Let me talk about it. So this is that's a bill that holds vaccine manufacturers liable for injuries caused by their products and if they advertise in Texas. So this is the next step. The bill having passed the Texas House, moves to the Texas Senate for review and voting. If approved, it goes to the governor for signing into law or veto. Right. This has the potential to be a game changer for the country, as it could set a major precedent for other states to do the same. It will effectively dismantle Big Pharma in a huge way. This has a really good chance of passing, but needs to be supported. Please share and get it out there.
The point of order is withdrawn. Chair recognizes Ms. Luther to continue on the bill.
If you advertise a vaccine in Texas, you will answer to Texans. It's time for Big Pharma to put their money where their mouth is. I move passage.
Question occurs on passage to engrossment of House Bill 3441. This is a record vote. The clerk will ring the bell. Show Mr. Hunter voting aye, Mr. Alders voting aye, Mr. Leach voting aye, Ms. Bowers voting nay, Ms. Troxclair voting aye, Mr. Schatzline voting aye. Members, I'll give you time to get to your desk. Mr. Little voting aye. You all voted. You've all voted. There being 99 ayes, 43 nays, House Bill 3441 is passed to engrossment. The chair lays out House Bill 5520 as a matter of postponed business on second reading. The clerk will read the bill.
HB number 5520 by Gomez.
There you go. Big move, right? We'll see what Abbott does. But we want to get into some more big pharma stuff. We'll start with the most corrupt series. We'll talk about Dr. Fauci. And from this video, we pulled up a few articles that we're going to read as well.
Fauci, I don't expect you today to admit that you approved of NIH funding for gain-of-function research in Wuhan, but your repeated denials have worn thin, and a majority of Americans, frankly, don't believe you. Even the NIH now admits that EcoHealth Alliance did perform experiments in Wuhan that created viruses not found in nature that actually did gain in lethality.
COVID-19 pandemic, which emerged in late 2019, changed the world in ways that no one could have predicted. It wasn't just a health crisis. It was a global catastrophe that upended economies, disrupted societies, and exposed the deep flaws in how we handle public health and governance. As the world shut down in response to the pandemic, we saw contradictions, confusion, and selective leadership decisions that made everything worse. The world's reaction to COVID-19 wasn't just about a virus. It was about power, control, and broken systems. When COVID-19 arrived, entire nations came to a screeching halt. Borders were closed, airports closed, and businesses shuttered. The global economy, already fragile in many places, teetered on the brink of collapse. The stock market plunged, millions of jobs vanished overnight, and small businesses, especially those that didn't rely on e-commerce, were left to die. What was particularly striking about these shutdowns was the inconsistency in how they were enforced. In many regions, liberal governors were quick to impose strict lockdown measures, but these measures often seemed selectively enforced, favoring larger tax revenue generating industries. Small businesses, mom and pop shops, local restaurants, gyms, and churches were forced to close their doors. Meanwhile, big box retailers, liquor stores, and even gentlemen's clubs remained open. Their operations deemed essential despite clear health risks. Why? Because their taxes were essential to state budgets, and perhaps because their business models, like so many others, had the ability to keep generating revenue regardless of the restrictions. Who was responsible? Who is Dr. Anthony Fauci? Why was he at the epicenter of the COVID pandemic? What role did he play in the creation of the disease? How and why was he involved in the cover-up? Hello, I'm Colin Heaton, former history professor, Army and Marine Corps veteran, and welcome to this episode of Forgotten History. Anthony Stephen Fauci was born on December 24, 1940 in Brooklyn, New York, the second child of first-generation Italian-American parents, Eugenia and Stephen. He worked the cash register or made deliveries for his father's pharmacy to make extra money. Fauci attended Regis High School in Manhattan and was captain of the basketball team. He then studied as a pre-medical student at the College of the Holy Cross in Worcester, Massachusetts. After graduating first in his class from the New York City's Cornell Medical College in 1966, he completed his internship and residency at New York Hospital Cornell Medical Center. Fauci began his extensive career at the National Institute of Health's National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease in 1968 and briefly worked as chief resident at the New York Hospital Cornell Medical Center from 1970 to 71. He was a senior investigator in the Laboratory of Clinical Investigation, starting groundbreaking research in immunoregulation and developed successful drug regimens for polyarteritis nodosa, granulomatosis, and polyangiitis, and lymphomatoid granulomatosis. Fauci helped George W. Bush develop the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief focused on combating the disease in Africa and other parts of the developing world upon its launch in 2003. He gained a reputation for handling the West Nile virus under President Bill Clinton, the anthrax scare and SARS under Bush, and the swine flu epidemic under Barack Obama. However, Fauci was also supposedly investing in these drug companies, which is legal, but may have had later unintended consequences. But Fauci's history goes way back in a very controversial way. In May 1983, during the AIDS crisis, a theory about the new disease was published by Fauci in the Journal of the American Medical Association. A UPI report on May 5, 1983 cited Fauci, "Household contacts can transmit AIDS." The Associated Press asked the next day, "Does AIDS spread by routine contact?" and quoted Fauci as their lead authority. The New York Times also asked about transmission between family members, citing Fauci's article as the source. Fauci was then appointed director of the NIAID in 1984 and played a key role in HIV/AIDS research, for which he was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2008. Fauci led the National Institutes of Health funded research testing AIDS drugs on hundreds of foster children for 2 decades, often without providing them a basic protection afforded in federal law and required by some states, meaning they were not of the age of consent. In the 1990s, foster care agencies sought treatment for their HIV-infected children, not yet available in the marketplace. The foster children ranged from infants to late teens, according to interviews and government records, and exposed the children to medical research and drugs that were known to have serious side effects in adults and for which the safety in children was unknown. In one study, researchers reported a disturbing higher death rate among children who took higher doses of a drug. That study was unable to determine a safe and effective dosage. Press accounts mentioned Fauci's article immediately sounded the alarm. Reminiscent of Dr. Joseph Mengele, Fauci had unfettered reign experimenting on children with AIDS who were in the foster care system. Many would argue that Fauci's methods then and recently, as well as the Biden.
So before we get past this point right here, I want to bring this back up right here. They compared him to the
was unable to determine a safe and effective dosage. Press accounts mentioned Fauci's article immediately sounded the alarm. Reminiscent of Dr.
So they compared him to a Nazi Germany's officer in position.
Joseph Mengele, Fauci had unfettered reign experimenting on children with AIDS who were in the foster care system. Many would argue that Fauci's methods then and recently, as well as the Biden administration, violated the Nuremberg codes established after World War II. In one study, researchers reported a disturbing higher death rate among children who took higher doses of a drug. That study was unable to determine a safe and effective dosage as well. In 1983, the government established special protections for children in foster care or orphanages and required researchers and oversight boards to appoint independent advocates for any child being treated that involved greater than minimal risk and lacked the promise of direct benefit. Some foster agencies required protection regardless of risks and benefits. Researchers and foster agencies told AP that foster children in AIDS drug trials often weren't given such advocates, even though research institutions many times promised to do so to gain access to the children, and Fauci knew it. Illinois officials believe none of their nearly 200 foster children in AIDS studies got independent monitors, even though researchers signed a document guaranteeing the appointment of an advocate for each individual ward participating in their respective medical research. Fauci did not care. New York City could find records showing 142, less than a third of the 465 foster children in AIDS drug trials, got such monitors, even though city policy required them. The city has asked an outside firm to investigate. Some states declined to participate in medical experiments. Tennessee said its foster care rules prohibit enlisting children in such trials. California requires a judge's order. Sometimes foster parents or biological parents were consulted, other times not. Wisconsin never allowed clinical experiments with children in the foster care system. Officials estimated that 5% to 10% of the 13,878 children enrolled in pediatric AIDS studies funded by NIH since the late 1980s were in foster care. Some children were taken off the drug dapsone because of serious toxicity. Others developed rashes, and the rates of death and blood toxicity were significantly higher in children who took the medicine daily rather than weekly. At least 10 children died from a variety of causes, including 4 from blood poisoning, and researchers said they were unable to determine a safe, useful dosage. They said the deaths didn't appear to be directly attributable to.
So they said 4 children died of blood poisoning, right? So when we hear they're poisoning the blood, I don't think they're talking about immigrants. They're talking about big pharma.
Dapsone, but nonetheless were disturbing. We now know, of course, that Fauci's theory on transmission was wrong. HIV, the virus that was later discovered to cause AIDS, is only transmitted by exposure to infected body fluids, such as blood or by sexual contact. The infection involved direct transmission from the mother to child during pregnancy. Fauci then totally changed his position, and he told the Baltimore Sun, "It is absolutely preposterous to suggest that AIDS can be contracted through normal social contact, like being in the same room with someone or sitting on a bus with them. The poor gays have received a very raw deal on this." Less than 2 months after his JAMA article appeared, Fauci publicly contradicted himself without ever acknowledging his own vital role in promoting the false claim to begin with. This would not be the last time Fauci would change his position to be politically expedient. But it would be the COVID crisis that would bring Fauci into the public eye for many reasons. As the disease began spreading, Fauci's commentary on COVID-19 given to CNN on January 24, 2020, took place the day after the Wuhan region of China went into draconian lockdown. Asked about the Chinese government's decision, Fauci declared, "That's something that I don't think we could possibly do in the United States. I can't imagine shutting down New York or Los Angeles." Well, that opinion would change. Fauci, for reasons yet unknown, rejected Secretary of State Mike Pompeo's assertion that the virus originated in a Chinese lab. Then social media began shutting down anyone, including leading researchers and medical experts, who also agreed that the lab leak was the source. Despite Fauci's initial statement that shutdowns were not required, he again changed his mind. He said, "Historically, when you shut things down, it doesn't have a major effect," which was Fauci's position during the 2014 Ebola outbreak. A recently resurfaced interview on NBC shows Fauci warning against draconian quarantine measures for Ebola and chastising several state governors for enacting hasty emergency restrictions to contain an outbreak in the United States without considering the unintended consequences. But then Fauci decided shutdowns were a great idea, a decision accepted, which destroyed the U.S. economy as well as education. But then President Trump launched Operation Warp Speed to have the research labs develop a vaccine for COVID. Fauci, already in deep with the big pharma companies, led the charge, although there were no double-blind or placebo studies as required by the Food and Drug Administration, the first time in history. When Trump cited other sources in the medical community who stated the proven anti-malaria drug hydroxychloroquine and the drug ivermectin were adequate treatments, Fauci disagreed. These cheap, effective drugs, later proven to be highly effective, were denied to the American public at large. Later, it was learned that those involved in pushing the free Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, and Pfizer vaccines were getting massive kickbacks. That would explain why they did not want hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin used. When the Trump administration declared that the country could reopen by Easter, Fauci convinced him to scrap that timeline. COVID-19 vaccines were responsible for a variety of side effects, including pain, redness, or swelling at the injection site, tiredness, headache, muscle pain, chills, fever, pericarditis, thrombosis, myocarditis, arrhythmias, hypertension, acute coronary syndrome, cardiac arrest, and anemia and nausea. Circulatory problems, blood clots, respiratory failure, organ damage, and death were also a result. Big Pharma has immunity from liability due to injury or death from these unproven drugs, but these were to be taken by consenting adults, at least until the Biden administration. The government requirement for immunization was passed on as a strong suggestion to private industry. Tens of millions of people who were wary of the drugs took these initial shots for fear of losing their jobs. Even the military was affected, and many personnel were discharged if they refused. In 2014, EcoHealth received a 5-year, $3.7 million grant from the NIAID to collect and analyze bat coronaviruses in China. At a minimum, EcoHealth's experiments should have been forwarded to the HHS for review. They did not. We now know this is not true. NIAID told EcoHealth to stop its experiments because they violated the then existent pause on gain-of-function research. The novel coronavirus SARS-CoV-2 has since caused approximately 170 million cases and 3.5 million deaths. Fauci said that no gain-of-function was being performed, but when evidence proved otherwise, and it surfaced, he said that we can't expect to really know all of what's going on at a lab receiving U.S. taxpayer funding. Now, remember previously, Fauci had denied that any taxpayer money had gone to fund anything along these lines in China at the Wuhan clinic. Lawrence A. Tabak, NIH Principal Deputy Director, noted in a letter to Congress that the terms of the grant award required EcoHealth to immediately report a 1 log increase in growth, a 10-fold increase, and it failed to do so. The specific language dated in 2016 was, should any of the MERS-like or SARS-like chimeras generated under this grant show evidence of enhanced virus growth greater than 1 log over the parental backbone strain, you must stop all experiments. Tabak confessed at a House subcommittee hearing that the U.S. government had indeed funded dangerous research at the Wuhan Institute of Virology, which modified bat coronaviruses shortly before the outbreak began in late 2019. In April 2021, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration and the Centers for Disease Control paused the Johnson & Johnson vaccine out of an abundance of caution after a small number of people who received the J&J vaccine developed thrombosis and thrombocytopenia syndrome, a blood clotting disorder. I, your humble narrator, had 2 friends who died after getting the 2nd and 3rd shot, respectively, of these symptoms. Additionally, the FDA updated the fact sheet for the J&J COVID-19 vaccine and added Guillain-Barré syndrome, a rare disorder that occurs when a person's immune system damages nerve cells and causes muscle weakness or paralysis as a risk of the vaccine. On June 1st, 2023, the FDA revoked the J&J vaccine's emergency use authorization. Total sales of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine surpassed $80 billion, and more than 400 million doses of the shot and subsequent boosters have been administered in the U.S. alone. Under oath, Fauci said that taxpayers and the government agencies such as National Institutes of Health and NIAID has not ever and does not now fund gain-of-function research in the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Rand Paul held Fauci culpable for research done in the Wuhan, China lab, which Paul believes triggered the viral outbreak. Fauci actually reaffirmed the shocking suspicion in his testimony that the 6 feet apart social distancing recommendation that he promoted was arbitrary, not based on science, and sort of just appeared. Conclusively, the Select Subcommittee held Dr. Fauci publicly accountable for pandemic-era failures, and Fauci changed his story under oath in both House and Senate hearings, and lied under oath several times when questioned by Republican Senators Rand Paul and Ted Cruz, but he was protected by the Biden administration's Department of Justice and Attorney General Merrick Garland. This was further proven when treasure troves of documents and emails uncovered by congressional investigators and investigative journalists established that the NIAID was in fact funding gain-of-function research on bat coronaviruses at the Wuhan lab via a grant to the scandal-plagued nonprofit EcoHealth Alliance, which the Biden administration had just debarred from receiving federal funding. Part of the evidence was when Anthony Fauci sent an email to prominent virologist Dr. Jeremy Farrar in February 2020 and discussed a phone call that Fauci had with virologist Dr. Kristen Anderson discussing concerns about a lab leak. This contradicts Fauci previously stating the lab leak was impossible. Dr. Fauci showed no remorse for the millions of lives affected by his divisive rhetoric and his unscientific policies. He never apologized to the thousands of Americans who lost their jobs if they refused the vaccine, nor did he apologize to children experiencing severe learning loss because of actions he promoted. When confronted with the evidence against him, Fauci confirmed that his senior advisor, Dr. David Morens, had in fact violated official NIH policies and potentially broke federal law. Dr. Morens deliberately obstructed the Select Subcommittee's investigation into the origins of COVID-19, meaning the lab leak, and unlawfully deleted federal COVID-19 records, and shared non-public information about National Institutes of Health grant processes with his best friend, EcoHealth Alliance Incorporated President Dr. Peter Daszak. Dr. Fauci maintained his misleading claim that the NIH never funded gain-of-function research in Wuhan, China. In 2021, he told Senator Rand Paul that the NIH has not ever and does not now fund gain-of-function research in the Wuhan Institute of Virology, repeating his earlier testimony. That was a lie. Then, amazingly, Fauci doubled down on his previous claim by stating the NIH did not fund gain-of-function research at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. He stated this publicly. Notably, former acting NIH director Dr. Lawrence Tabak told the Select Subcommittee recently that the NIH did in fact fund gain-of-function research in Wuhan, contradicting Fauci. Following the many fiery exchanges between Fauci and members of the various committees where he lied under oath and emails and documents proving it, NIH quietly removed the Wuhan lab from its list of approved animal labs. Documents were discovered showing the Wuhan lab conspired with the NIH and EHA to violate a federal ban on gain-of-function experiments that was put in place by the Obama-Biden administration in 2014. Now, as all of this was unfolding for 3 years, Fauci unleashed attacks against anyone in the professional community who challenged his assertions and decisions. He used his influence to shut down dissenting voices, using his progressive allies in the social and mainstream media and government to do so. But facts are very disturbing things. Documents published in late 2021 by The Intercept revealed that the EcoHealth Alliance used grants from Fauci's agency to fund Wuhan Institute of Virology experiments that modified 3 bat coronaviruses distinct from COVID-19. Senator Tom Cotton, Republican of Arkansas, stated in an address, last week this agency admitted that they had in fact funded gain-of-function research in the Wuhan Institute of Virology. History should judge him as a deficient person who made one of the worst decisions in public health history in the entire history of the world, Rand Paul said of the former chief White House medical advisor during an interview on WABC 770 AM's The Cats Roundtable. Paul continued, for his dishonesty, frankly, he should go to prison, he told host John Katzimatidis. Do you think the scientific knowledge that was gained from this research is worth the deaths of 20 million people? The New York Post reported back in January of 2024 that Rand Paul said Dr. Fauci should go to prison for mishandling the COVID-19 pandemic and making the worst decision ever made by a public health official in the history of time. Rand Paul cited the Government Accountability Office report in June 2023 that found the National Institutes of Health had contributed more than $1.4 million to Chinese research institutions between 2014 and 2019, despite serious biosafety concerns, including at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Dr. Fauci then corrected his previous testimony that his staff did not possess conflicts of interest. During his transcribed interview, he claimed, the only people that I'm involved with is my own staff, who we've mentioned many times in this discussion, who don't have a conflict of interest. During his testimony, he changed his position, testifying that Dr. Morens definitely had a conflict of interest. Dr. Fauci then publicly changed his mind that the lab leak hypothesis was possible and not a conspiracy theory in his statement to Representative Jim Jordan, Republican of Ohio, and he falsely claimed that he has kept an open mind about the origins of the pandemic. This again contradicts the publication of the now infamous proximal origin paper that attempted to vilify and disprove the lab leak hypothesis to protect Fauci and his illegal activities. But there was yet another scandal involving Fauci that surfaced in October 2021 when Republican U.S. House Representative Nancy Mace of South Carolina tweeted a letter she sent to Fauci referencing documents obtained via a Freedom of Information Act request from WCW. WCW claimed that from October 2018 to February 2019, Fauci ordered cruel and unusual drug toxicity tests on dogs that cost taxpayers $1.68 million. In a third report, WCW claimed that NIAID funded more than $375,000 to $424,000 to conduct a study that again used beagles as test subjects in experiments involving sandflies that the organization described as torture. The documents outline both the proposed study design as well as the actual results of the study, the latter of which resulted in 40 beagles between the ages of 8 and 9 months being administered oral and subcutaneous doses of an unnamed HIV therapeutic between September 2018 and October 2019. All dogs were euthanized following the study, and their organs were analyzed for potential toxicity from the drugs. The horrendous beagle experiments totaled more than $1.8 million paid by taxpayers and had no congressional knowledge or oversight. Fauci was also the highest paid government official in history and made millions from kickbacks from the drug companies. He escaped and evaded criminal charges under Biden and retired with the taxpayers footing $15 million per year bill for his personal security and protection team. Now that we have a new administration, let's see that stripped away and see that Dr. Fauci gets a few weeks in court. Thank you for watching this episode of Forgotten History. If you liked what you saw, please click like, share, and subscribe. And if you would like to assist with the ever-increasing cost of production, please consider becoming a channel member.
So we're going to go over a couple articles from that. So before they tested on the beagles, they were tested on children. Here in 2005, we have May 4th, 2005, government tested AIDS drugs on foster kids. This is by John Solomon. Government-funded researchers tested AIDS drugs on hundreds of foster children over the past 2 decades, often without providing them a basic protection afforded in federal law and required by some states, an Associated Press review has found. The research funded by the NIH spanned the country. It was most widespread in the 1990s as foster care agencies sought treatments for their HIV-infected children that weren't yet available in the marketplace. The practice ensured that foster children, mostly poor or minority, received care from world-class researchers at government expense, slowly their rate of death and extending their lives. But it also exposed a vulnerable population to the risk of medical research and drugs that were known to have serious side effects in adults and for which the safety for children was unknown. Research conducted in 7 states. The research was conducted in the last 7 states. In the least 7 states, Illinois, Louisiana, Maryland, New York, North Carolina, Colorado, and Texas, and involved more than 4 dozen studies. The foster ranged from infants to late teens, according to the interviews and government records. Several studies that enlisted foster children reported patients suffered side effects such as rashes, vomiting, and sharp drops in infection, fighting blood cells as they tested antiretroviral drugs to suppress AIDS or other medications to treat secondary infections. In one study, researchers reported a disturbing higher death rate among children who took higher doses of a drug. That study was unable to determine a safe and effective dosage. The government provided special protections for child wards in 1983 that required researchers and their oversight boards to appoint independent advocates for any foster child enrolled in narrow class of studies that involve greater than minimal risk and lack the promise of direct benefit. Some foster agencies required the protection regardless of risk and benefits. Advocates must be independent of the foster care and research agencies and have some understanding of medical issues and act in the best interest of the child. quote unquote, for the entirety of the research, the law states. So children often were not given advocates. However, researchers and foster agencies told AP that foster children in AIDS drug trials often weren't given such advocates, even though research institutions many times promised to do so to gain access to the children. Illinois officials believe none of their nearly 200 foster children in AIDS studies got independent monitors, even though researchers signed a document guaranteeing the appointment of an advocate for each individual ward participating in the respective medical research. New York City could find records showing 142, less than a third of the 465 foster children in AIDS drug trials got such monitors, even though city policy required them. The city has asked an outside firm to investigate. Likewise, research facilities, including Chicago's Children's Memorial Hospital and Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore, said that they concluded they didn't provide advocates for foster kids. Now, Johns Hopkins is where they ran Event 201, the simulation of the pandemic in October. Some states declined to participate in medical experiments. Tennessee said its foster care rules generally prohibited enlisting children in such trials. California requires a judge's order, and Wisconsin has absolutely never allowed, nor would even consider, any clinical experiments with the children in our foster care system, spokeswoman Stephanie Marquez said. So officials estimated that about 5% to 10% of the 13,878 children enrolled in the pediatric AIDS studies founded by the NIH since the late 1980s were in foster care. More than 24 Illinois foster children remain in studies today. Some foster children died during the studies, but state or city agencies said they could find no records then any deaths were directly caused by experimental treatments. The most vulnerable subjects imaginable. Research typically secured permission to enroll foster children through the city or state agencies, and they frequently exempted themselves from appointing advocates by concluding the research carried minimal risk and the child would directly benefit because the drugs had already been tried in adults. Our position in that advocates weren't needed, said Marilyn Castalda, spokeswoman for Columbia Presbyterian Medical Center in New York. If they decline to appoint advocates under the federal law, researchers and their oversight boards must conclude that the experimental treatment affords the same or better risk-benefit possibilities than alternate treatments already in the marketplace. They also must abide by any additional protections required by the state and the local authorities. Many of the studies that enrolled foster children occurred after 1990 when the government approved using the drug AZT, an effective AIDS treatment for children. Arthur Capel, head of medical ethics at the University of Pennsylvania, said that the advocates should have been appointed for all foster children because researchers felt that the pressure of a medical crisis and knew there was a great uncertainty as to how children would react to the AIDS medications that were often toxic for adults. It is exactly that set of circumstances that made it absolutely mandatory to get those kids those advocates, Capone said. It is inexcusable that they wouldn't have an advocate for each one of those children. When you have the most vulnerable subjects imaginable, which are kids without parents, you really do have to come in with someone independent who doesn't have a dog in this fight, he said. So better access to drugs. Those who made the decision say the research gave foster kids access to drugs they otherwise couldn't get, and they say that protected the children's interests by carefully explaining risk and benefits to state guardians, foster parents, and the children themselves. To say as a group that foster children should be excluded from clinical trials would have meant excluding these children from the best available therapies at the time. He said, from an ethical perspective, I never thought that was a stand I could take. Illinois officials directly credit the decision to enroll HIV positive foster kids with bringing about a decline in deaths from 40 between 1989 and 1995 to only 19 since. NIH, the government health research agency that funded the studies, did not track researchers to determine if they appointed advocates. Instead, the decision was left to medical review boards made up of volunteers at each study site. Safety review boards were overwhelmed. A recent Institute of Medicine study concluded that those institutional review boards, IRBs, were often overwhelmed, dominated by scientists and not focused enough on patient protections. And ethicists who served 22 years on such boards said that they lacked the resources to ensure the safety of those foster children. Over the last half century, IRBs have basically been broken under the strain of some of the structural changes in research, said Gregory E. Pence, the University of Alabama, Birmingham bioethics. The U.S. Office for Human Research Protections, created to protect research participants after the infamous Tuskegee syphilis studies on Black men and investigating the use of foster children in AIDS research. The office declined to discuss the probe. NIH says it considers patient safety its top priority and awaits the outcome of the investigation. If we find that the patient protections need further strengthening, we will take action to do so, spokeswoman John Burlow said, or Burklow. AP's review found that if children were old enough, usually between 5 and 10 years old, they also were educated about the risk and asked to consent. So they were asking 5 to 10-year-olds if they consent. Sometimes the foster parents or biological parents were consulted, other times not. Our policy was to try to contact the biological parents because it was fairly common when we got done with the foster kid that they would go back to the parents, said Dr. Ross McKinney, a pediatrics AIDS expert at Duke University. Research and foster agencies declined to make foster parents or children in the drug trials available for interviews or to provide information about the individual drug dosages, side effects, or deaths, citing medical privacy laws. Someone needs to be watching. Other families who participated in the same drug trials told AP that their children mostly benefited, but parents needed to carefully monitor potential side effects. Foster children, they said, need the added protection of an independent advocate. I don't believe a foster care parent can do it, said Benny DePaulio, a New Jersey woman whose 10-year-old adopted son has participated in 3 AIDS drug trials. There are informed consents that have to be signed. There are follow-up blood appointments. I think that's the role of the advocate should take, because a foster parent may only have this child for 3 months and then the child moves on, and someone needs to be watching all the time, she said. Many studies that enlisted foster children involved early phase 1 and phase 2 research, the riskiest, to determine side effects and safe dosages so children could begin taking adult cocktails. The powerful drug combination that suppresses AIDS can cause bad reactions like rashes and organ damage. Some of those drugs were approved ultimately for children, such as Stadivine, and Zidivine. Other medicines were not. Illinois officials confirmed that 2 of the 3 foster children were approved to participate in the mid-1990 study of Dapsone, D-A-P-S-O-N-E. Researchers hope that the drug would prevent a pneumonia that afflicts AIDS patients. So we have reports of serious side effects. Researchers reported some children had to be taken off the drug because of the serious toxicity. Others developed rashes, and the rates of death and blood toxicity were significantly higher in children who took the medicine daily rather than weekly. At least 10 children died from a variety of causes, including 4 from blood poisoning, and researchers said that they were unable to determine a safe, useful dosage. They said that the deaths didn't appear to be directly attributed to dapsone, but nonetheless were disturbing. An unexpected find in our study was that overall mortality while receiving the drug was significantly higher in the daily dapsone group. This finding remains unexplained, the researchers concluded. Another study involving foster children in the 1990s treated children with different combinations of antiretroviral drugs. Among 52 children, there were 26 moderate to severe reactions, nearly all in infants. The side effects included rash, fever, and major drop in infection-fighting white blood cells. Officials defend the research. New York City officials defended this decision to enlist foster children in mass, saying there was a crisis in the early 1990s, and research provided the best treatment possibilities. Nonetheless, they are changing their policy so they no longer give blanket permission to enroll children in pre-approved studies. We learned some things from our experience, said Elizabeth Roberts, Assistant Commissioner for Child and Family Health at Administration for Children's Services. It is more individualized review we will be conducting. Researchers likewise defend their work, saying they often sat with their foster families to explain the risk and benefits and provide them literature with and 24-hour phone numbers. We talk about it, then they come next time. There is no rush, explained Dr. Ram, said the chief pediatric AIDS researcher in Chicago, whose patients included a large number of foster children. Klein, the Texas researcher, added, I never wanted a parent or guardian to ever say yes, simply because they thought that it was what I wanted them to do. I wanted it to be the right choice for them. I think there is not any single right answer for any family. So it's an article from John Solomon in 2005, tested on foster care, children. And so this has been going on since the 80s. Here it is, 2025.
Yeah, and we still have people, wondering if he's been dealt with, Why?
Right.
Why they need a bad actor walking around like this, dude,
Until it's public, we have to assume that nobody's been dealt with.
Right, absolutely.
So we had another story that came out, which we talked about in the Telegram chat. Georgia becomes the second U.S. state to shield Roundup maker from lawsuits. This was just the other day. Let me get to it. Yeah, because a lot of people were winning their lawsuits against Roundup. So Georgia Governor Brian Kemp, the most amazing governor in American history, has signed new legislation that would protect agricultural maker Bayer from some lawsuits over the possible health risk caused by the weed killer Roundup. Earlier this year, a Georgia jury awarded nearly $2.1 billion to a man who alleged Roundup caused his cancer. That's a lot of money. $2.1 billion. The new Georgia law will take effect in 2026, meaning it won't affect any existing cases. So if you have a case right now, it's not going to affect that case. I know my neighbor got in one of these. Her grandfather was sprayed a lot of Roundup around their house, and it got on his clothes. And as a kid, I guess they do laundry and stuff like that, or they're around them. So it could be passed down, or you can get exposure through that. Somebody else spraying it in your home. So in a victory for global agrochemical maker Bayer, and remember, Bayer goes all the way back to Nazi Germany, the company. Georgia has become the second state to shield pesticide manufacturers for some lawsuits claiming that they failed to warn customers of potential dangers. The legislation signed last week by Georgia designed to protect Bayer from lawsuits claiming that it failed to tell customers that its popular weed killer Roundup could cause cancer. It's written broadly enough to provide legal protection in Georgia to any pesticide manufacturer that follows federal labeling requirements. So basically, it's going to cause cancer, but as long as they tell you it does, you can't sue them. Okay. North Dakota's governor signed the first such law last month, and similar measures have been considered this year in at least 9 other states. The backstory: Bayer was based in Germany. Here we go. Like I told you, Bayer, based in Germany, acquired Roundup with the 2018 purchase of St. Louis-based Monsanto, but it was quickly hit with an onslaught of lawsuits alleging that Roundup's key ingredient, glyphosate, causes non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. More than 67,000 of a total of 181,000 claims involving Roundup remain outstanding, but a Bayer spokesperson said that he didn't have specifics about how many of those are in Georgia. Though some studies associate glyphosate with cancer, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency has said it is not likely to be carcinogenic to humans when used as directed. Not likely. Bayer insists that glyphosate is safe, but it has stopped using the ingredient in its residential version of Roundup and has set aside about $16 billion to settle cases. It continues to use glyphosate in its agricultural version of Roundup, but has warned that it might have to stop doing so if the legal costs keep mounting. So your farmers are still using it with the glyphosate. What's next? The new Georgia law is to take effect. I don't know if anybody y'all seen them spraying the crops with this shit, but it's crazy to think that we eat that. What's next? The new Georgia law is to take effect on January 1st. That means it won't affect existing cases, such as March decision by a Georgia jury to award nearly $2.1 billion in damages to a man who alleged Roundup caused his cancer. Kemp decided to sign the legislation after hearing from farmers and others in the agricultural community, spokesperson Garrison Douglas said Monday. Dig deeper. Bayer has teamed up with a coalition of agricultural industry groups to mount a multi-pronged campaign. In addition to pursuing legislation in states of Congress, it also asked the U.S. Supreme Court to intervene and has run ads on billboards, newspapers, TV and radio stations, and internet sites touting that the importance of glyphosate in agriculture. Glyphosate has for decades been used an efficient way to control weeds with less tilling, which helps prevent soil erosion for some crops such as corn, soybeans, and cotton. Roundup is designed to work with genetically modified seeds that resist glyphosate's deadly effect. So that's why they got the GMO seeds out there, so that the Roundup doesn't kill the plants. And you don't want GMO. GMO got to go, right? So what they're saying, without glyphosate, weeds could become harder to control. You know, those same weeds that help out. Crop yields could decline, and groceries could become more costly, Bayer says. I think we'd rather have our health and maybe a little bit higher prices than to have a bunch of vegetables and stuff sprayed by Roundup just so you can make a bigger profit. I think we can all agree on that. I'd rather have higher prices than lower prices on the vegetables, as long as it's not sprayed and not use GMO seeds. The new law demonstrates that Georgia stands with its farmers who work tirelessly to produce safe, and it stands with the farmers, but it's not standing with the people. Again, So this is probably why your farmers are having to go through some tough times right now, based on the things that they themselves have put profits over the people. And instead of saying, maybe you're not going to get as much of a crop as you hope for, but at least the people eating the food isn't out here getting sick because of it. So again, I just want to point out Bayer goes all the way back to Nazi Germany, just like Ford, Coca-Cola, all these other companies. So there you go. Protecting the farmers, spraying Roundup. So again, the good news is Texas passed House Bill 3441, a bill that holds vaccine manufacturers liable for injuries caused by their products if they advertise in Texas. So you're probably going to I don't know what they're going to put as far as your commercials on your local channels, because most of them are nothing but big pharma commercials. I can't wait to see it, how that's going to look. I know when I'm visiting with my mom, it's constant big pharma commercials, every other commercial, constant advertising in sports, sporting events, FM radio, et cetera, et cetera. So this has the potential to be a game changer for the country. So let's hope that the rest of the country falls in line, as it could set a major precedent for all other states to do the same. It will effectively dismantle big pharma in a huge way. Says this has a really good chance of passing, but it needs to be supported. So that's the good news. That's about all I got. I got a couple of things right here. Anybody into hugging trees out there?
All you have to do is touch the tree, and instantaneously the grounding energy goes into all of your cells. 50 trillion cells in your body get the beneficial effect, the negative ions. And it's instantaneous. It doesn't take time. As long as you make contact with your body, physical body, with the ground. But the hand is as good as a foot. We can't do that most of the time because we're insulated by our shoes. All our shoes have rubber to insulate us from getting the good energy. So why don't you use your physical hand and touch a tree? It accomplishes the same thing.
So we want to live a happier life, a wealthier life, because our health is our wealth. So tonight's show is basically just to make you aware of the good things that are coming and the bad things that have happened, and the forgotten history of Anthony Fauci and the NIH, and the body count that they left behind with not just only dogs, but foster children that had no parents. Maybe some of these kids were trafficked. I can only imagine the number of kids that they use that aren't being reported or discussed. The ones that, because if we have 300,000 children going missing a year in this country, especially under the Biden administration and beyond, and it makes you wonder where they actually went and what actually happened to them, other than sex trafficking and child labor and stuff like that. They were also being used as guinea pigs. So it's pretty sad to know. And to know what's even sadder is this was like 20 years ago. And it's been swept under the rug so well that when the COVID came, nobody put two and two together. Hey, man, this guy's a Nazi scientist as compared to and as the narrator compared in the video to a German physician. So again, they tell us that those that forget history are doomed to repeat it, and we seem to have repeated history. People think that the Holocaust was something pretty big, but I think what we just went through was even bigger than that. So that'll be written about in the history books in the future, what not to do, of what we just all survived. Some of our neighbors weren't, and family members didn't survive. I think what they say, 20-something million plus. That's a lot of people. So we've got to keep speaking out for those people that aren't here to speak up for themselves. And let's hope that our future generations don't repeat the same mistakes that we've made over the last 4, 5, 10 years and beyond. I hope everybody had a good weekend. You got some good time with your family members. I know we had a good chat last night on Telegram. It was really good vibes. And I really hope to have more like that. You there, Mike?
Yeah, I'm here. Couldn't get my mic undone. So here we are. We got we're gaining knowledge daily, and understanding the fight that we're in, to the point that our voice must be heard. And it's like Sheepdog said a while ago. The public needs to know that Fauci is been dealt with, and we need to see that he's been dealt with. And I think we'll have those times. I refer back to the Hopi prophecy, right? And there's many other prophecies like it throughout the different land masses throughout the world. There are some like I think Joe Biden has exited the movie, and the movie, as the movie come to an end, we have, cancer is the story that's going to be used. I think that yeah, he didn't look the same when he was on other after that, right? Yep, absolutely. But there's a case for a lot of it. Okay, one thing that we cannot do is speculate on who we are, and to know that there were people in the world, and there may be still people in the world. And there is, obviously, there's good and bad in everything and everyone, and to know that that type of evil is out there, and that we can easily use the knowledge to turn it off to an extent. It is an undertaking in itself, considering the many different angles that were created. What we sometimes can call scars, traumatic episodes in people's lives. I know many of our community and myself and the Sheepdogs, we've lost family to that crap. Moncito, the cancer that I had, Moncito, which is where the original maker of the weed killer piece came from, and now Bear added to it, right? And B cell lymphoma was one of the big cancer triggers with that. The mRNAs into Jabarowski's are turbo cancers, causing turbo cancers and blood clots and all kinds of things. And like the one video said, the doctors and have no answers, right? The one article said too. And yet they know. Well, most of them know. And it has to make you wonder how much people are willing to do for money, but they aren't willing to do for love and the care of humanity and the survival. I don't even like the word survival anymore. The thriving of our youth as we come into this new age. And lessons. This is going to be this period of synthetic reset and the religious sects and all of that. I mean, you can go on down the line to almost any topic, and there's lessons. There's lessons being passed out right now. There's tests, and everybody's going to get a taste of their own medicine in one way or another. I'm not saying good people are bad, but I am saying that we're all gonna go through a period where we learn more about ourselves than we ever thought we could, and that's a good thing. The solar flares. Let me get to that piece right quick. Sheepdog, everybody has asked for the forgotten history video that we played earlier to be put in the show notes on Rumble, please, after the show.
Yeah, you got that one.
Yeah, I'll get it for you. All right. Let me get to this piece that I shared earlier on the solar energies, right? The solar flares, right? Okay. Remember, we said something major happened on the 15th. We had Gavandi's Tidball's on piece, and then we had this, okay, as well. All right. I'll put it in the private chat in just a second, Sheepdog. All right.
I'm gonna put these links also in the Rumble chat real quick as well, but I'll also have it in the
description. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
The History Channel is really good for people because we forget, and it's sad that Fauci has forgotten history, but they went back all the way to the 80s. So the channel is really good as far as reminding you of what all's taken place over the years. Sorry, Mike, for the interruption.
No, that's great. That adds a ton of value to what we've been sharing, and to take it even further, we're seeing it a second time around on some things right now. Like I mentioned, the drug prices, right? We all seem to have forgotten that happened in 2017, and we saw no results from it. It was fresh off the failed attempt of fully repealing Obamacare, although they got a portion of it repealed, right? But then he went in right into the lowering of drug prices in 2017, and nothing ever came of it. We did see insulin come down for a brief period, but it went right back up. The EpiPen went astronomically higher, and so on and so forth. And I know if I open my old laptop, there's a lot of that data on there from 2017 about the drug prices and his first term, where he said that as well. Now here we are again, and there's a video floating around on X that Sheepdog shared with me, I'm not going to play it tonight because I'm just tired of talking about the Trump character. You know, he need, if he's got a job to do, he needs to freaking do it. And I think he's doing it, but it sure does look funny the way it's being done, right? We have to say I literally think the Trump character is asking us to stand up to things that he's doing, and recognize that it's unconstitutional. It has nothing to do with true civics and the true republic, right? And so on and so forth. But you know, I don't digress at all. But the energies is something that we all need to keep in mind too, because there is a great effect on people in many different ways, and being grounded is the best way to work through some of this. Okay, so the geometric storm alert, how the upcoming solar shift might impact your body and mind. May 17th, 2025. Dear friends, once again, a big coronal hole stretching across the southern hemisphere of the sun is currently facing Earth, sparking concerns of a significant magnetic storm in the coming days. This solar wind is expected to arrive into our atmosphere around May 18th and 19th. As the high-speed solar wind streams from this coronal hole reaches our planet, moderate G1 to G2 geomagnetic storm conditions are expected. Meanwhile, we have been experiencing a moderate solar storm with the KP6 index in the past hours, the result of the recent X solar flares. A lot of the weather events are happening on the same pattern as the eclipse. Sheepdog talked about that briefly in our Telegram live Saturday night. If you haven't heard that, it's on Telegram. It's in the pinned messages. And here we are. You know, we're talking more about the solar flares. So as this solar geomagnetic storm approaches, its impact on human biology can be multifaceted. Physically, some energy-sensitive people might experience headaches or migraines as the changing magnetic fields interact with their body's sensitive nervous system. Others might feel an overwhelming sense of fatigue, as if the storm's energy is draining their batteries and disrupting their sleep patterns. Those of you may already be experiencing some energetic shifts before the actual solar winds arrive are called pre-wavers, sensitive individuals who resonate deeply with solar frequencies. Emotionally, the storm's influence can be just as profound. Mood swings, irritability might become more pronounced, making it challenging to navigate daily interactions. Anxiety and stress could also creep in. Fueled by the unpredictable nature of the storm, some individuals might find themselves struggling to focus or feeling mentally foggy, as if the storm's energy is clouding their usually clear thoughts. As the storm's effects manifest, some people might notice they're more sensitive in surroundings, lights, sounds, or even the smallest stimuli could trigger a stronger response. Sleep disturbances are also possible, with some sensitive individuals experiencing more vivid dreams or insomnia as their bodies respond to the changing magnetic fields. To navigate this potentially turbulent time, it's essential to prioritize self-care, staying hydrated, keeping your energy grounded, getting plenty of rest, and engaging in relaxing techniques like deep help mitigate the storm's impact. By being attuned to your body's responses and taking proactive steps, you can better weather the storm and emerge feeling more grounded and resilient. Feel free to listen to the grounding activation in the 3D to 5D activation library on his website. If you need some extra assistance to anchor your energy, that's a good place to start, and find a more stable inner emotional and physical balance during that time as well. This transmission is most beneficial during periods of energetic shifts, personal challenges, experiencing energetic cleanings, and life transitions in general. It will connect you energetically to the core of our planet and include feeling of safety, relaxation, inner balance. You can also work with the nervous system's overload activation. In the perennial section of the library on the website for a deeper relaxation and emotional release. The website being DiegoBerman.com/light language library, and I'll give you all the link, okay? As we journey through this potent nine universal year, coinciding with the majestic year of the snake, the solar plasma is deeply entwined with our energy fields, working tirelessly to liberate us from long-held blockages and toxins. The transformation process is unfolding globally, transcending borders and boundaries, as the planet itself undergoes a profound energetic detoxification. The vibrational cleaning surrounding us in the hallmark of this pivotal year, stirring ancient fears and intense emotions to the surface for transmutation. It's a critical transitional phase, one that requires courage and resilience as we prepare to step into a radiant new chapter. The promise of this journey is a brighter, bolder future filled with promise, possibility, waiting to unfold as we emerge into the dawn of a new era. Have a wonderful day and stay tuned for more updates as these solar winds begin to arrive. Much love. We are one, Diego. All right. And let me get that article link. That website for you. Okay. Because his library is really good. And right here it is on his website. Okay. You can see the different areas that he mentioned to use to help with this one that's coming. We probably got some effects from it today and much more tomorrow. This is a really good website, folks. And he seems to be really on top of things when it comes to understanding and helping us translate, if you will, the solar energies, in the healing process and the coming of the new age, right? The detoxification. So, let's see here. There we go. All right, Sheepdog, you got that one. And then I'll get you the one from YouTube right now. So I don't know about you, but I'm kind of excited. Yes, that's a huge indication that the big flash that we're expecting is on its way. Absolutely. All right. This is just a shear from a hole. This is going to shear the earth plane. I read deeper into it on other articles as well. But this particular one that we're talking about now is just it's going to shear the earth. It's not directly at the earth. The one that's coming directly at the earth is, of course, the X, right? X marks the spot, right? The beginning and the end. Y'all remember it. The eclipse pattern that Sheepdog showed you, the figure 8, right? All of that is at play. Sheepdog, you want to talk about that for a second?
What about the storms?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's in the same vicinity as the eclipse that just took place. I think it was a few months back? Was it last year? Yeah, ever since then it's been disturbances and stuff. But also it talks about how the sleep patterns get messed up and stuff like that. And I think I've been experiencing that myself. So you start seeing your sleeping patterns, the brain fog, and stuff like that. Those are all real symptoms of things changing in the environment that you're sensitive to. Others may not be. I know I've been experiencing it myself. Last few days have been pretty good with sleep. Just been trying to step away from the constant shit show, I guess you want to call it, the drama. And after last night's chat, it was pretty. It helped me reground and reconsider what's more important and what's really taking place, and that's freeing people's minds from the Truman Show that we're seeing and all the fake division just taking place, because I don't see it out in town anywhere. I don't see people going at each other or having issues over politics in a Walmart or a grocery store or anything like that. It isn't one side of the store for Democrats and there's not another side of the store for Republicans, and we all kind of mingle and talk, and so it's just a fake facade of online activity that's taking place with a lot of people that have hate in their heart, I guess. But yeah, we had some more deadly tornadoes yesterday as well, and so the death toll's climbing, and the destruction is getting more and more intense. But the communities are stepping up and helping each other afterwards. A lot of people are reporting that they didn't get their tornado and hurricane or tornado warnings because of they defunded one of the weather channel or weather alarm systems, so people didn't get the warnings that they normally would get. So that could have played a factor in the death toll as well. So if you're feeling irritable and stuff like that, just let it pass. Try not to take it out on anybody, and just quit running from that shadow work. Just sit down and take care of that shadow, and let that, and release all that negative energy. It's kind of like, was it this right here? So you see that you got the different zones that you got to come out of that comfort zone, the fear zone, then you go into the learning zone and the growth zone. That's how it works. But you got to come out of your comfort. Try to do something different. That's one of the recommendations. Eat somewhere new or go somewhere different. Listen to some different music. Watch something different, etc., etc. Break the cycle. Break the loop.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But I'll play that again.
That's you.
Comfort, learning, growth. I thought that was a cool clip.
I did too. I was glad you played it. Glad you shared it in Telegram earlier too. So with that, we're going to leave you with a great big hug, and I love you guys. I love each and every one of you. We all do. And we'll see you. We'll see you tomorrow. On Tuesday, we will have Rod Hayes on with us. Pass that around Tuesday. Rod Hayes will be on with us Tuesday night. Love you all. Good night.